Come here, you. Hey.
What?
Say $5,000.
Why?
God, why not $1 million?
Well, you know what? Even if we can't sell them right away, we can use them.
I'll stay down here by these guys, and you go stand down there. And we'll bid against each other. I'll throw them off. They won't know what's going on.
For years, Jarrod Schulz was one of the most recognizable faces on Storage Wars. The quick-talking bidder with a sharp eye for profit and a fiery relationship with Brandi Passante became a fan favorite. But today, Jarrod's story is no longer about treasure hunts and storage units. After years of controversy, court battles, and scandal, his sentence is final. And for Jarrod, it means goodbye forever. When Storage Wars first premiered in 2010, viewers were hooked by the drama of the auctions and the colorful cast of buyers. Jarrod Schulz and Brandi Passante stood out as the couple who mixed business with bickering, turning every storage locker into a roller coaster of laughter, tension, and big risks. Together, they built a brand, opened stores, and became reality TV stars. But reality off-screen was far less glamorous. As the years passed, Jarrod's personal life began to unravel. His split with Brandi made headlines, his business ventures collapsed, and run-ins with the law started to define his reputation. Now, with his legal troubles catching up to him, Jarrod faces a reality darker than any failed storage unit. His sentencing marks the end of an era, not just for his time on Storage Wars, but for his place in the public eye. So how did a reality TV star go from fan favorite to courtroom regular? And what does this final sentence mean for his future? To answer that, we have to go back to the beginning, when Jarrod's rise to fame seemed unstoppable. Before the fame, Jarrod Schulz was far from the larger-than-life personality fans came to know. Born in California in 1977, Jarrod worked ordinary jobs, hustling to provide for his family while searching for opportunities to strike it big. He eventually found his way into the world of storage auctions, a cutthroat business where knowledge, intuition, and a little bit of luck could make the difference between profit and disaster. It wasn't glamorous, but Jarrod had an eye for spotting value. Together with Brandi Passante, his longtime partner, he started building a name in the local auction scene. Their chemistry, equal parts teamwork and conflict, was undeniable, and it caught the attention of producers looking for personalities for a brand-new reality series. When Storage Wars debuted, Jarrod and Brandi quickly became household names. They weren't the richest or the most experienced bidders, but their relatable struggles and constant banter made them a fan favorite. Jarrod's boldness, sometimes reckless, often clashed with Brandi's cautious pragmatism, creating the kind of drama TV audiences love. But what fans didn't see was the toll that sudden fame was taking behind the scenes. Jarrod's temper, his appetite for risk, and his inability to separate personal life from business planted the seeds of future disasters. Would Jarrod's hunger for success make him a reality TV star forever? Or would it eventually lead him down a path he couldn't escape? For years, Jarrod and Brandi's relationship was central to their on-screen identity. They weren't just business partners, they were life partners, raising 2 children while building their second-hand empire. Their playful arguments gave Storage Wars its emotional core, and fans loved watching them struggle and succeed together. But off-screen, the cracks were getting wider. By 2018, after nearly 2 decades together, the couple officially split. The breakup shocked fans, but those close to the pair weren't surprised. Their relationship, already volatile, couldn't withstand the pressures of fame, money troubles, and constant conflict. The breakup didn't just end a romance, it dismantled a brand. Their stores closed, their joint ventures collapsed, and their dynamic on Storage Wars could never be the same. Brandi continued to appear on the show, focusing on her children and rebuilding her independence.
I mean, after 15 years of being with Jarrod, I mean, I just assumed that that ship had sailed.
Jarrod, on the other hand, spiraled. Without Brandi's steadying influence, Jarrod's decisions became riskier, his temper more explosive, and his personal struggles harder to control. For fans, it was painful to watch the man they once cheered for unravel in public. But no one could have predicted just how far Jarrod would fall, because soon his name would no longer be tied to storage auctions, but to a criminal courtroom. After the breakup with Brandi, Jarrod Schulz's world began to collapse. The man once known for his bold, sometimes reckless bidding style now seemed to be making reckless decisions in every part of his life. Without the balance Brandi provided, his flaws, the same ones that made for great television, became far more destructive. His businesses struggled. The second-hand stores that had once been the centerpiece of his and Brandi's entrepreneurial dream shut down. Fans who had once visited their shops for a glimpse of the stars found shuttered doors and faded signs. The empire they had built together was gone. Financial strain piled on. Fame, as Jarrod quickly learned, is fleeting. The paychecks from storage wars couldn't last forever, and without the consistent business income, his financial stability evaporated. Those closest to him said that Jarrod seemed lost, drifting from one failed venture to another, trying to recapture the spark that had once made him a reality TV star. But it wasn't just money. Jarrod's personal life was unraveling too. His reputation in the storage auction world suffered. Once seen as a shrewd competitor, he now carried the shadow of someone who couldn't keep his life together. Relationships with friends, colleagues, and even family grew tense as his temper became harder to control. The spiral wasn't just about poor choices. It was about a man who couldn't let go of the past. Jarrod was chasing the glory days, the fame, the attention, the thrill of the gamble. But with every attempt, he seemed to sink deeper into trouble. And then came the turning point, the charges that would forever change his story. In 2021, Jarrod Schulz's name made headlines again, but not for the reasons fans remembered. He was arrested and charged with domestic violence following an altercation with Brandi Passante. For fans who had watched their playful arguments on screen, the reality was shocking and heartbreaking. This wasn't the light-hearted bickering that made for good television. This was something darker, more serious, and far more damaging. According to reports, Jarrod and Brandi had a heated confrontation, and the accusations that followed were damning. Jarrod was charged with a misdemeanor count of domestic violence battery, a charge that carried not only legal consequences, but also the destruction of his public image. The story spread quickly, and the fallout was immediate. Reality TV thrives on drama, but there's a line, and Jarrod had crossed it. His appearances on Storage Wars dwindled. His reputation was tarnished beyond repair, and the court of public opinion turned against him. For Brandi, it was another painful chapter in a relationship that had already ended in heartbreak. For Jarrod, it was the beginning of the end. The charges hung over him, dragging his name deeper into scandal and pulling him further away from the life he once had. Fans who had cheered for him now saw him differently. The man who once fought for storage units was now fighting in courtrooms. And unlike the world of auctions, there was no big win waiting at the end of this battle. But what would the courts decide? And how would this final sentence redefine Jarrod Schulz's legacy forever? When Jarrod Schulz walked into the courtroom, it was a far cry from the storage auctions that had once defined him. Instead of standing in front of rusty lockers filled with forgotten belongings, he now stood before a judge, his entire future hanging in the balance. The courtroom drama surrounding Jarrod was as intense as anything he'd faced on television. His legal team fought hard, attempting to paint him as a man who had simply lost his way after years of public scrutiny and personal struggle. They argued that fame had created immense pressure, that his breakup with Brandi had destabilized his life, and that the incident in question had been blown out of proportion. But the prosecution had a different story. They painted Jarrod as a man whose temper had spiraled out of control, someone who could no longer separate his personal frustrations from his actions. Witnesses, evidence, and testimony painted an ugly picture, one that was impossible to ignore. For Jarrod, the experience was humiliating. Fans who once tuned in to watch him banter with Brandi were now reading headlines about his alleged violence. Every detail of his private life was laid bare for the world to see. The courtroom wasn't just deciding his legal fate, it was dismantling what little remained of his reputation. As the proceedings dragged on, it became increasingly clear that Jarrod's days of skating by on charm and risk-taking were over. The man who once prided himself on taking big chances now faced consequences that couldn't be outbid, outplayed, or ignored. Would the judge show mercy, or would this be the final blow that ended Jarrod's public life forever? When the verdict came, it was the moment that sealed Jarrod Schulz's fate. After months of speculation, legal wrangling, and public scrutiny, the sentence was final. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the ruling. Jarrod had avoided the harshest penalties that some feared, but the weight of the judgment was undeniable. His conviction meant his name would forever carry the stigma of his actions. His record was tarnished, his reputation in ruins, and his future in entertainment virtually gone. For Jarrod, it wasn't just about legal consequences, it was about losing everything he had built. The Storage Wars chapter of his life was now a closed book. Producers and networks, wary of controversy, distanced themselves. The businesses he once ran were long gone, and the fan base that had once cheered him on had fractured, with many turning their backs completely. The man who once stood on top of the storage auction world, bidding boldly against competitors, now faced a much harsher reality: obscurity. The sentence wasn't just about punishment, it was a symbolic goodbye to the world he had once thrived in. In many ways, it was the end of Jarrod Schulz as the public knew him, not just as a TV star, but as a cultural figure. His downfall was complete, and the finality of the sentence left no room for a comeback. But could Jarrod find redemption outside the spotlight? Or was this truly the end, a goodbye forever to the man fans once knew? For years, Brandi Passante was more than just Jarrod's partner on Storage Wars. She was the voice of reason, the anchor that kept their chaotic business ventures grounded, and the one who seemed to balance Jarrod's impulsive decisions with her practical approach. Fans loved her sharp wit and strong personality, and many considered her the real star of the show. When she and Jarrod split in 2018, Brandi faced one of the toughest challenges of her life: rebuilding her world without the man she had spent nearly 2 decades with. The breakup wasn't just personal, it was professional. Together, they had built businesses, raised children, and shared the spotlight. Now, she was on her own. Brandi chose resilience. While Jarrod spiraled, she focused on her children and her independence. She continued her appearances on Storage Wars, proving she didn't need Jarrod by her side to succeed. Fans rallied around her, admiring the way she carried herself with dignity through the chaos. Outside the show, Brandi embraced her role as a single mother. She spoke candidly about the challenges of raising 2 kids while navigating fame and personal heartbreak. Her honesty endeared her even more to fans, who saw in her not just a TV personality, but a strong woman fighting to protect her family. While Jarrod's story was one of decline, Brandi's became one of quiet strength. She found a new identity outside of him, showing the world that she could thrive on her own terms. But as she moved forward, the shadows of her past with Jarrod remained. How do you truly leave behind someone who was once your entire world? For Brandi, the answer was complicated, and the wounds left by Jarrod's actions would linger far longer than anyone could have imagined. At the heart of Jarrod and Brandi's story are their children, the ones who never asked for the spotlight, the fame, or the drama, but who found themselves caught in the middle of a storm. For years, fans watched as Brandi and Jarrod balanced parenting with their business ventures. Their kids were kept mostly out of the camera's view, shielded from the full weight of reality TV. But behind closed doors, the tension between their parents was impossible to hide. The breakup shattered the family dynamic. Brandi became the primary caregiver, focusing on giving her children stability as Jarrod's life spiraled further out of control. For the kids, it meant adjusting to a new normal, one where their father was absent not just from the home, but eventually from their lives in a deeper way. Jarrod's legal troubles only widened the divide. The headlines about his charges, his court appearances, and his sentencing cast a shadow over his role as a father. For children who once saw their dad on TV, entertaining millions, it must have been a painful reality to watch him fall from grace so publicly. And for Brandi, the responsibility was crushing. She had to carry the weight of explaining to her children why their father wasn't around, why he was in the news, and why things could never go back to the way they were. The Schulz family, once a team, was now fractured beyond repair. The laughter, the bickering, the sense of partnership that made them so relatable on screen had given way to silence, distance, and sadness. The tragedy of Jarrod's downfall wasn't just his alone. It was shared by the people closest to him, the ones who had no choice but to live with the consequences of his actions. But while his family moved on, Jarrod faced something even darker: the weight of his own legacy. Would he ever be remembered as the Storage Wars star he once was, or only as the man who lost it all? In the early days of Storage Wars, Jarrod Schulz was a fan favorite. His brash energy, constant clashes with Brandi, and bold bids made him entertaining to watch. He wasn't the richest buyer, nor the most successful, but he was relatable. Viewers saw in him the risk-taker who sometimes stumbled but always came back for more. But now, with his legal troubles finalized and his sentence confirmed, that career is over. Producers know that audiences have little tolerance for stars embroiled in controversy. The risk of keeping him on the show outweighed any potential ratings boost. As Jarrod's appearances dwindled, fans noticed the shift. His absence on screen was initially brushed off as a creative choice, but soon the truth became undeniable. The man who once fought over storage units in front of millions of viewers was now gone from television for good. His former castmates have quietly distanced themselves. Brandi continues to thrive. Dave Hester pops in and out of the spotlight, and Barry Weiss made a celebrated return. But Jarrod's name is rarely mentioned. For the Storage Wars brand, Jarrod became the ghost of its past, a reminder of the dangers of fame gone wrong. And with the finality of his sentence, any chance of a comeback has evaporated. Hollywood may love redemption stories, but Jarrod's controversies are too raw, too damaging, and too final. His career, once promising, now lies in ruins. The question that remains is haunting. When the lights go out and the cameras are gone, what's left for someone who built his entire identity on fame? For Jarrod Schulz, the road ahead is bleak. The sentence doesn't just mark a legal consequence, it represents the symbolic end of his public life. No more reality TV, no more businesses tied to his celebrity, no more opportunities to leverage his name for success. He now faces obscurity, a life defined not by what he built, but by what he destroyed. For a man who once thrived in the spotlight, the transition to anonymity will be brutal. The fans who once cheered for him have largely turned away, and the industry that once gave him fame has closed its doors. His personal relationships are fractured. His family has moved forward without him. Brandi has carved out her own identity, and his children are growing up in a world where their father's name is synonymous with scandal. For Jarrod, the biggest challenge may not be the sentence itself, but the emptiness that comes after. When your past is filled with fame, money, and recognition, how do you rebuild in silence? Can you live a life where no one is watching, no one is cheering, and no one is waiting for your next move? This is the harsh truth of Jarrod Schulz's goodbye. It isn't just about leaving Storage Wars, it's about leaving behind everything he once was. And so, as the final chapter closes, we're left with the chilling realization: Jarrod's story isn't just over in the courts, it's over in the public eye. This is goodbye forever. The rise and fall of Jarrod Schulz is more than just the story of a reality TV star. It's a cautionary tale about fame, ego, and the dangers of losing yourself in the spotlight. When Jarrod first appeared on Storage Wars, he was a symbol of hustle, risk-taking, and determination. Fans related to his flaws, laughed at his clashes with Brandi, and cheered for his wins. But as the years went by, the cracks widened. Fame magnified his weaknesses, and without the balance of Brandi and the support of his family, those flaws consumed him. His legal troubles were the final nail in the coffin. They transformed him from a beloved reality star into a cautionary headline. The sentence confirmed what many had feared. There would be no redemption arc, no triumphant comeback, no second chance in the spotlight. Instead, Jarrod's legacy is a tragedy. A man who once had it all: fame, family, opportunity, but lost it because he couldn't control his temper, his choices, or his demons. And that's the heartbreaking lesson for all of us. Fame is fleeting, success can vanish, but the consequences of your actions endure. Jarrod Schulz's story reminds us that no matter how high you climb, one wrong step can send you crashing down, forever. So what do you think? Was Jarrod's downfall inevitable, or could things have turned out differently if he'd made better choices? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the untold stories behind the stars you thought you knew. Because sometimes the biggest losses aren't found in storage lockers. They're written in the lives of the people who once chased them.